Hello and welcome to the Triumph Over Cancer website. We're glad you visited us today, and we hope that this presentation will provide you with some meaningful information. Today we're going to cover what is colon cancer, what are the risk factors for cancer, and what you should do to help prevent it. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is what is colon cancer. Colon cancer is when you have an abnormal growth of cells that happens within the large intestine and rectum. There's lots of different types of cancer, but this one is specifically known for the intestine and the rectum area. Within this area in the large intestine, there are polyps that can develop, and if these are unchecked or not removed, these can actually turn into cancer. So these growths can be extremely dangerous. First off, if they're not found, and second off, if they're not taken care of and removed before they have a chance to turn into something that is cancerous. So who is at risk? For those individuals that are suffering from an inflammatory disease, for example, Crohn's disease, you may be more at risk for colon cancer. One of the big things is having a family history of cancer, of colon cancer specifically. If you have that within your family, you are definitely more susceptible and more at risk. And in fact, there are more guidelines for you as far as what testing and recommendations would be. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation. There are some factors that you have control over, and those involve lifestyle choices. So some things that you can do now to help prevent colon cancer is to participate in daily exercise. The CDC recommends definitely having 30 to 45 minutes of exercise several days a week. Also maintaining a healthy body weight. Those that are overweight or obese are definitely more at risk for colon cancer. Other lifestyle choices include figuring out your diet, making sure that you are having low-fat foods. You need to be having foods that are higher in fiber, fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, whole grains, avoiding foods that are high in fat like chips, processed foods, those types of things. And then, of course, there's also the risk for those that take alcohol and also participate in smoking. Colon cancer is one of the most preventable forms of cancer, but it is actually one of the higher known killers as far as cancer goes for both women and men. It can be the second leading cause of death, which is pretty serious. There is a recommendation right now from the CDC for those individuals who are age 45, and that's without a family history, that's when you should have your first screening or your first testing. You will be recommended by your primary care doctor to have maybe even sooner testing if you have a family history. There are lots of different options. I know everyone's heard of a colonoscopy and all the stories that kind of go with that. There are other options now, including a stool testing, sigmoid. Well, that's part of the colonoscopy that we initially talked about, but there's also something called a virtual colonoscopy, which is not as familiar. So definitely make that appointment with your doctor and decide what test is going to be best for you. The reason why this is important to me is because I have lost a family member to cancer. It was back in the year 2013, and I went to go visit, actually my whole family, we all traveled together to go visit my side of the family, my parents, for Christmas one year. And when we showed up on Christmas Eve, we noticed that my mom was pretty out of breath, that she seemed to have a hard time completing her sentences. So she had been recently sick, and we figured, well, she could be, it could be something serious like pneumonia. We better take her to the emergency room. And within a couple of hours, we discovered that she had lung cancer, that her lungs were pretty much filled with it. And what was interesting about this cancer was that it actually did not start in the lungs. With further testing, we found out that the cancer that killed my mom actually came from her colon. It was colon cancer that had metastasized or eventually had outgrown or overgrown outside of the colon and had spread to other parts of her body, and that was what eventually killed her just a few short weeks later. So this means a lot to me. I'm passionate about colon cancer, especially when it becomes when you have an opportunity to have early intervention with early screening and being able to detect and treat something so easily as far as having a colonoscopy and having polyps removed. So it is, again, one of the most preventable. So we recommend that you go and see your doctor, make that appointment now, and decide when is that test going to be right for you and which test is the best fit for you. The information that was used in this presentation came from the CDC Cancer Colorectal site. There's also some great information on cancer.org. I do not have audio for the type of recording that I have, but I do have a video here that I wanted to share called From the CDC, the Bums and the Bees. So that's just a cute example of how difficult that conversation can be, but in just a cute, fun, humorous way that we can have that conversation early with the family members that we love. So just one more quick slide to talk about. Again, I just want to invite you, please don't delay. If you're in your mid-40s, it's time to have that conversation with your doctor and set that time. Talk about your family history and also know what your family history is. Talk to your family members, talk to your grandparents. The more information you have, the better it's going to be. Please look around in your circles and decide who it is that you know and love, whether it's neighbors, friends, coworkers, who needs this information. And it's something that the more we talk about it, the more open we are about it, the more that we can prevent cancer for those that you love. Thanks today for your time in listening to this presentation.